getting into the picks and bans finally.
Well, we'll see what George Mason can do adaptively here. They played a much better early game than Illinois and looked to be the favorites for the game as a whole, but it all just did start to come off the rails. You have to wonder, too, how much of that was mentality? How much of that did they think, hey, we've got this in the bag, and really just let themselves slip on?
Well, that was the thing. They never really got to the point where, yeah, it was in the bag. Sure, their scaling was good. They were on the right route, but they never had that definitive lead over Illinois. Never more than 1 to 2K gold. And unfortunately, it's very hard to end a game when you're coasting at 5K gold lead. It's even harder to do so at only 1K, and they just couldn't find the plays.
Yeah, they just started to play like they might have thought that.
Yeah.
A little bit of some of the decisions they made, especially with Firefly, getting a little bit too close to the fire himself there. We'll see how it all does pan out. Now, one more ban. Same thus far. We'll see if they do opt to take anything new off the board. It is Skarner for Minsu. He will not get that champion this time around.
Yeah, Minsu was the straw that broke the camel's back for George Mason. They had absolutely no response. None of them paid the Skarner tax. None of them picked up a single QSS. So they will be adapting there. And now the question has to be, in these next few compositions that they go forward with, what do they go with? They went for something a little bit outside of the meta. They picked up the cinch in the top lane, went for the full scaling comp. Was the issue the composition, or was the issue how they performed on it? And unfortunately, there's not that much time to course correct.
Well, with the Caitlyn pickup, they are going to be denying 2 key components of the last composition that did come out now for Illinois, and we'll see what they do decide to come back with, because last time around it was 2 support bans, Morgana and I can't remember who they've opted for to take away this time over Skarner, or took Skarner over rather, but we'll see what Ginormous Noob decides to come to the table with here. Before too long, Varus picked up for Project 1. They know that's a comfortable answer to the Caitlyn in their eyes. And now we'll see if it's a support or the jungle they do decide to go with, because very rarely do you see a solo laner drafted this early.
Exactly. Now that you have the Skarner banned out, still the main 2 junglers in the meta, being that Trundle, being that Olaf, are on the board. The Trundle's certainly a little bit more of a counter to the Olaf, just with the pillar. But Xeno going back on the rise. This is a question mark for me. Xeno certainly didn't have the strongest showing in the world, missed a lot of Qs in the laning phase, was not quite able to end out a majority of those kills, and especially with the mana cost on the Spellfucks being increased as of the last patch, he's not that reliable of the wave clear anymore in the early game. Gotta be wondering what adaptations can be made here, and certainly there have to be new things in the meta, especially the Cassiopeia too, that can take advantage of this and bring it to him early, because Route, sure, he had some good plays, he didn't really impact the map that much.
IO deciding he wants the Ornn, and Braum taken out in a way as well, so Ginormous Noob will not get his preferred bot lane of last game either. And now with that in mind, we have not seen a jungle picked up just yet. Now finally the Trundle will be the option. Minsu going to want to take that one out and away. Still leaving the door open for the Olaf. Anivia banned out now from the side.
You got to be thinking for GMU, they want to ban this Karma. So far, Varus picked up in the lane, can go fairly aggressive early, needs to get to that Rage Blade +1, probably on a spike to go super aggressive in the laning phase. Taking out the Karma gets rid of the potential for equaling pressure, especially versus the Caitlyn. Karma plus the Morgana are really the only 2 picks that can go toe-to-toe with the Caitlyn push in the early game. But so far, they're not quite going to ban it out just yet.
No, they opt for the Cho'Gath. Don't want that into the top lane. Kha'Zix's banned. Firefly will not get to play that champion. So we'll see if they do target the support or the top some more here. Will the Alistair taken out?
Okay.
Don't want that one coming through for Ginormous Noob. The traditional Season 1 supports. He didn't get to play him today. So we'll see now as they do look to start the makings of rounding out their composition. Likely the support pickup here if they want to leave open the option. They know it's a counter pick regardless whatever they have priority. So Taric locked in. Ginormous Noob. Ornn obviously going to go to that top lane. So they could have counter picked top, but they want to just hide that one away for a little bit.
And with the Taric pick, you now have the melee versus melee matchup on support, which then defaults to the ADC matchup for who's really going to get the pushing advantage and who's really going to get the poke advantage. And now Caitlyn for GMU is basically going to be uncontested. Sure, you can always get the ganks down. Trundle has a much easier time getting on to something like the Caitlyn Braum than something like the Severe plus Karma. But all the while, it does give that direct lane pressure and means that Illinois have to find some sort of answer to it elsewhere on the map. But with the counter pick most likely headed up to that top lane, they certainly can try to split that pressure.
Pressure, the name of the game yet again, and this will be the lock-in composition now for the side of George Mason University. Ornn in the top lane. Jungle coming out from Graves will be Orianna in the mid, and Caitlyn Braum in that bot lane. So just the top lane are left to pick now for the side of Illinois, and we will have our compositions, get a chance to break them down and get off to the races here. And they want to flip-flop. Topopotamus says, anything you can do, I can do better. And we'll try to show Ione how Sims is really played.
I like this composition quite a bit more coming out on the side of Illinois than from GMU last matchup. This match, though, GMU, remember, they're the ones with the back against the wall. If they lose right here, they are out of the play-ins. Illinois will be headed to those national championships live in LA. Certainly a lot on the lines, but they've now opted for this mid-game teamfight composition with the engage of Ornn, the mid-game teamfighting of Orianna, Graves, and Caitlyn, plus a Braum to back it all up. This is a game that's basically going to be won or lost at that 20 to 30 minute mark once these fights start rolling.
We'll see what George Mason can, in fact, do to turn this one up on its head, because they do need to find something here, an answer to the questions that were posed at the end of last game when they did have things sort of get topsy-turvy on them there. So a lot of pressure building around them now, and we had a lot of pause time, a lot of downtime for that just to kind of percolate a little bit, and everyone to take a step back and during that break kind of weigh just how important this next game is.
Exactly, and still looking out over our two compositions here, you got to start taking into account what the lanes are actually going to look like, and I believe right now our eyes need to be at this jungle matchup. Graves, certainly someone who's been coming back in the meta, has basically gotten 2 straight buffs in a row on these last few patches. And Firefly, very clearly, not the biggest fan of tank junglers so far, so we'll be trying to use that Graves damage in the early game, but this is also something that if it gets out to that super late game, isn't quite going to be as effective.
Yeah, there is a sweet spot in this composition, right? And you said the 20-30 minute mark. I think for George Mason, this happens right around, I guess, 3 items, really. They're going to get a jump start to it with Caitlyn on the earlier part. We talked about that. We broke down all of that for you guys last game. But, Orianna, Graves, and Ornn in particular, when they all start to get around that mark, especially just depending on how the macro objectives have gone, can really make a strong showing in a case themselves against the composition that has been drafted by Illinois here. So
the tricky part of this competition for George Mason is that they need to find a way to get ahead and stay ahead in this early game. The Caitlyn in the laning phase, sure, you have that one item spike, you have the range advantage, but if you get put behind, you don't come back very quickly because you have this power trough where you need to stay at least half item ahead between the first and third item if you want to stay relevant in the fights. Orianna, if she gets put behind a kill or two, gets put behind a wave or two, isn't going to have the items necessary to hit those big impact ultimates, and Graves too. Sure, he can put out a lot of damage in the early game, but he's not a crit scaling ADC. He doesn't have the best late game outlook.
Yeah, and so much now falls onto the shoulders of Enrique to just put up or shut up, get things moving. That was the same case for Project 1 last game. This time, not just that situation that's flip-flopped, but a couple champions here as well with Singed going into the top side of thing, and Caitlyn Braum now over into the hands of George Mason. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a couple quick announcements, some things to share before we do get into this game about the CSL, who we are, and what we do. First off, my name is Kyle Corbis Crow. I'm joined at the desk today by Steven Return Johnson. You can follow us both on Twitter at the lovely @ beneath our boxes there, or by hitting !casters into the Twitch chat, so you can get the easy link right there. Other ! Discord. Discord, great way to get your school more involved in the future here. Learn about CSL, who we are, what we do, get involved with other esports besides just League of Legends. Another great way to stay in touch is our social medias, Twitter and Facebook. That's twitter.com/CStarLeague, facebook.com/CStarLeague, and then also twitter.com/CSLLOL if you want to keep up with all the League of Legends action, which, we're coming to the final weekend of right here. Do want to give a huge shout out to Twitch TV. As always, nothing but love and support, gratitude for Twitch and their continued support of our collegiate esports endeavors. things like PAX East and West, CSL would not be what we are today without their help. So be on the lookout for cool ways to get involved with them in the future here. That's going to be twitter.com/Twitch, facebook.com/Twitch, twitch.tv. It's where you are right now, unless you're watching us on YouTube. It means this series is already over, but you're carrying on spoiler-free. That's going to be youtube.com/user/C-Star League for all of our VODs across all of our esports. And last but not least, we do want to give a shout out to Juice Battery. Lasts 6 times as long, charges twice as fast. Stay in the game. JuiceBattery.com for more information on that one. And we're in the game.
Yeah, loading in right here. 3 sets of mini dematerializers coming out for George Mason, so they know. Actually, wait, 3 sets on each side, so that is a total of 6. Or if you want to count them down, 64 mini dematerializers in this match right here.
Oof, ouch, owie, my minions. Not going to last long.
There will not be a single cannon mini left in this game at any point of the match.
Well, they do know that it came down to pressure last time. George Mason, maybe wanting to find a cheeky level 1 here.
Yeah, we said before that George Mason needs to find and maintain an advantage through majority of this early game. Are going to pull a little bit of a sneaky RMU strat here, pushing up in the mid lane. And then maybe trying to warp around. Ginormous Noob is behind that wall. He can't see them just yet, but
Three-man
sniff
stun.
it out.
Nicely done. Does save the day with that one. George Mason trying to get the tilt factor going on early here. They know how important an early kill can be in just breaking the mental fortitude of these teams. So Ginormous Noob, you know, had some good playmaking moments last game on the Taric this time. If they can keep him from really being a functional threat, makes it pretty good.
And Taric could be the direct response to these team fights. Normally when you see an Ornn on the enemy team, which is currently the case for George Mason going over to Illinois, you want to have the Braum as the quick deflection of the shield, get rid of the Call the Forge God, but Taric almost has a similar-esque function, being that when you see the ultimate starting to be channeled, there's still about a 2-second delay before he can even hit you with it. So enough time to throw down the protection, throw down the ultimates of Taric for Ginormous Noob, and maybe that's how they start to survive out some of these team fights. And a lot of the damage coming out of George Mason from these team fights will be front-loaded, with especially the Graves and the Orianna relying on their high-impact ultimates. If you can buy enough time or avoid 1 to 2 of those ultimates with that Taric ultimate, you can just turn the team fight on its head immediately, giving time for your consistent damage dealers like Varus and Ryze to take on over.
Yeah, I mean, it is a timing-heavy ultimate, but if you can nail it, it pays dividends. And here's Firefly trying to go in for Xeno, at least burns the Summoner Heal in the Flash.
And we talk about this so much, but that's the investment in the future. They know that, GMU knows that they need to get somebody ahead in this early game by ganking mid lane so quickly, grabbing both Summoner spells away from Xeno. Xeno now has to be incredibly conscious of another gank coming his way or risk falling behind in the pressure, and that does just give more power, more lane priority over to Route.
Yeah, and I like this particularly because Enrique is going to get the advantage just on a long enough scale in the bot lane, just being by merit of being capable here, right? So focus on somebody else. Get Route rolling. Ooh, hang on. Speaking of Route and rolling, he's rolling on out of mid lane one way or another. The flash in from Minsu means first blood. And he will indeed be rolling out in a casket. Right back to base. Yeah,
while the flash being burned out of Xeno does give Route a little bit more priority, it by no means guarantees his safety in the laning phase. Trundle, 5 times better of a ganker than the Graves, just with the ability to throw up the pillar. Basically uncounterable except from flashing away from the mid laner, and no real discipline coming out from Route. Gets knocked down as a result, and what looked like the advantage for George Mason, for Illinois rather, gets immediately turned back around in favor for George Mason.
Well, with that, Route going to be on the back foot. It is first blood coming down to Minsu here. It burned that flash for it, but that's going to feel worth it 10 times out of 10 in this particular instance. There's just no better way to start off a game as a Trundle than a lovely first blood gank, and return to the scene of the crime, and I don't think Route was ready for this one. Minsu gets Xeno a nice kill for that one, and now the mid laner sitting at 1-0-1.
Remember what we said in the early game. Route needs to stay at least half an item ahead in his build if he wants to have any impact on these team fights. And already, on the back, he's killed once more. Xeno not only getting off to a good start, but he's going to start really pulling ahead around this lane. And against somebody with as consistent of CC as Rise, this is an advantage that can easily snowball out of control.
Snowball indeed. It was something that we were able to find massively in the last game, is they just got an inch, took a mile, and turned it into the whole game from there. Pretty big run down. So we'll see if they can replicate that same success. Illinois off to a great start this game. The Trundle pickup for Minsu, something that was, ace up his sleeve there. We'll see whether or not it does continue to transpire, because we talked about a window for George Mason. They have to do everything they can to make sure that they find that timing right and it doesn't close before they ever get rolling.
Certainly, and as we do start to mellow out just a little bit, the rolling definitely does need to pick up here, but once more, Minsu is going to be nearly unstoppable on every single gank he goes for. And now the priority shifts from getting the early gank to starting to get that vision control, because if you're able to basically control the rest of this top side jungle coming out for Illinois, you can basically keep every single lane from George Mason under control just out of sheer fear.
Fear is definitely a big motivator for this one. George Mason know that this is the game. Now look here, Firefly onto Xeno. Minsu is in the area, and they're going to try to turn this one around. The pillar does find him, and he may have to flash out of this one if the dash doesn't do enough for him, but is okay. Gets a bloody nose for his trouble and walks on out of that one. Was not able to burn any of the summoners out of Xeno. Wanted to maybe get that heal off, but Xeno knew he could wait. Minsu, not in the best, or not there at the right time, but did eventually come in and save the day for his mid laner there. So good reactionary play. Good use of the plant to make sure that there was no issue as well from anybody else in the area. And things are just going to simmer back down to normal here. It's about a 1k gold advantage right now for Illinois.
And as the mid lane in particular does continue to play on out, Xeno does have the Summoner Spellbook, so he's able to change that heal back towards his teleport, get back into this mid lane, and continue the potential advantage he has there. Rout's starting to run a little bit low on mana despite hitting level 6. So potentially going to have to back himself, and that really just does give Xeno the hard advantage in that lane. Give him an extra wave. Maybe use the Minion Demon Tulas to shove it even further past. And wait, is this that? I believe that's actually a cannon wave too, so quite a lot Rout's going to miss here.
Yeah, definitely didn't want to end up timing that the way it did go down, but yeah, the cannon wave indeed just chewed right through by Xeno, and then he's going to get control over it with this control word as well. So mid lane looking pretty good for the likes of Illinois. Where both kills have gone down, Rout is sitting, of course, on that 0-2. And with Minsu in the area, I wonder if he's waiting for something or just the right timing for another gank. There he goes in. The pillar does
flash.
find Rout. There's a nice shockwave to maybe buy some time as Firefly's here. But yeah, the flashes were both down. Rout could not flash out of that one. Minsu could not flash in. Call of the Forge God comes down from Ion. He wants to get in onto this one, and Topopotamus may be in some trouble here. You don't chase the Singe too far, but he forces the flash, and that's going to feel pretty good for himself.
Yeah, gets him out of that one, but now that the Call of the Forge God is down, just another tool that George Mason could have used to maybe facilitate one of these early on fights. Certainly at the 8-minute mark, Caitlyn hasn't even gotten her first back in yet. You're really not looking for this early of a play, but teleport back to the top side plus Minsu.
Yeah, the ward will go down.
No ult and no flash.
He smells a rat. He's trying to get out of this one, but that's going to be the roam up from Xeno, and Firefly really can't do too much to help here. They just have to let Io die. They want to at least get something for their troubles, and that something will be Xeno. And now can Rout and Firefly continue on against Topopotamus here. They shouldn't chase too hard. It is, of course, Singed. But turning that back into a 1-for-1, excessively good play from George Mason, just to not give up too much in that one. Io looked dead to rights, and they said, no, we're going to make the risky play. We're going to try to find Xeno. And making Rise take a half step back is always going to be something they're looking to do.
But look at who actually benefited from those plays. It was a 1-for-1, but the one kill actually being taken from Illinois goes over not only to Minsu, but also the assist to Xeno and the assist to Topopotamus were on George Mason's side. The kills picked up by Ion, but not really shared around. Sure, Firefly got a little bit, but it's still not going to help out Route, who is still pretty hard down in the lane. Starting to edge out to about that 600 gold deficit this early on into the matchup versus the Rise. And Enrique, I mean, he's still doing all right. Caitlyn doing Caitlyn sort of things, maintaining a CS advantage over the Varus in lane, but still looking to finally edge out this advantage in lane, because remember, this is probably still a Rage Blade first item coming out of the Varus despite the changes to it recently. So he doesn't need too much gold to get going.
Ion does have his flash this time if need be. Probably doesn't need it. He will get tossed back here. No, actually, must have been on cooldown for top of bottom. Just couldn't find that one. But meanwhile, we have Chain of Corruptions down in the bot lane. They want Enrique. They want Alex. They're going to stun up Alex at least, but there's not a lot of mana for the caster ADC Varus. Project
But here's
one.
Zeno.
Did run out of this one. Yeah, the Realm Warp's coming down on the back line. Alex, what can you do here to save it? They do get behind the shield. The teleports. No, sorry, the ultimate coming down. So this is going to be a kill, at least onto Enrique, and Alex could not save his carry this time around. Almost dies himself, but we'll see if Firefly can turn any of this around. Wants to find Zeno, does get rooted up, and then the minions. That's going to be a free takeaway. Good roam from Zeno, and Ginormous Noob doing everything to make sure no one went down for his team in that fight.
Without anything being pushed into the bottom lane of GMU, Enrique and Alex are not that far ahead. Hell, they even got shoved into the base. Shoved into the tower with the minion team Attilas just coming out for Ginormous Noob. They aren't hard in control of this lane, and as such, all it takes is one good roam down from the dominant mid laner in Zeno. Ultimate comes out from Ginormous Noob, and that is exactly how you draw that play up in the pregame locker room on the whiteboard. And that's still just going to consistently give slight advantages to Illinois. And against the mid-game team-fighting team from George Mason, there's still yet to be seen what the answer is going to be, but get to the mid lane.
Come in, Firefly flashing in for this one. Zeno in some trouble, but here's Ginormous Noob. The ultimate, not an option, but the stun potentially enough to save things. Route on the way out does have to flash. And the support roam there did the trick. Kept Zeno alive, and with no summoners, he was in no danger anyway. Rift Herald popped up now in this mid lane tower. Not going to be long for this world with 3 members of Illinois there.
Rift Herald being popped in the middle lane. Doesn't look like it's going to get too much as the squad of Enrique, Alex, and Firefly are able to push this one away, but especially with Alex and Enrique in the bottom side, Alex, you just can't do too much on the Braum. You are a defensive figure, but unfortunately you're not quite as defensive as the Tarek too, so certainly still needs to be looking for the usefulness during the team fights, but unable to really facilitate anything in this bottom lane. But Project One.
Interruption. Project One wants to find this one. Enrique's health bar already low. 90 caliber net to try to get out, but it was sniffed right out and did not net anything here. Now that's going to be called. The Forge God in the top side, keeping Topopotamus locked up. His mana not an option. They flash in. Ion wants to find this, but doesn't have any mana himself and does have to back off at just the worst possible time. Cannot find that last kill, and unfortunately things do crumble back down there. Still looking solidly in the favor of Illinois here. George Mason have to find a way to get back into this game.
And this is still advantage after advantage going down in favor for Illinois. If you're George Mason, you need to pull out that big play. You need to make some macro rotation. Bring a teleport down that Illinois isn't expecting, because you do not have the luxury of just waiting on the late game. Sure, Caitlyn is viable in the late game. She does have the potential for a lot of damage. I'm not quite sold she's ready to out-damage a Varus at the very end stage of the game. Orianna relies so heavily on landing that ultimate, whereas Ryze is still a very much more consistent damage dealer in the late game fights, and even in the top lane. Ornn is nice, Ornn has engaged, but Singed is just straight up annoying to actually just try and play around. So a lot of questions are still being posed, and not many answers currently being solved by George Mason.
Yeah, you want to see a little bit more out of Ion, especially when it comes down to these fights. Call of the Forge God going to be something that, you know, we talked about the Wombo combo, the 5-man that they're going to be able to bring to the table here, and it's just going to be pretty insane. Now, meanwhile, mid lane tower does go down while this fighting is going on. They will find first turret advantage. It's sitting about 3k gold up, give or take a little bit there. Illinois has done a really good job of shutting down the carries for the likes of George Mason thus far. 2 deaths onto both damage dealers, Route and Enrique. Let's see what they can turn things back around with.
And this entire early game just boils down to the jungler, especially in support for George Mason. When you pick something like the Graves, you are taking away a lot of your playmaking potential, and when you lose out of the jungle, you gotta find it somewhere else, and... Ooh, engage.
Yeah, maybe something going on down here. They want to find Minsu. Meanwhile, Alex finds a nice Glacial Fissure just to keep things moving in the right direction, but Route in some trouble to Zeno here. Zeno does find the first kill. Firefly, can you push this any further? He does have Minsu waiting off in the wings. I think he knows it too. Buying some time perhaps for Ione. That will be pinged out, called out, all sorts of well-known. We'll see whether or not they try to take this fight to top of bottomless, giving Zeno and Minsu a little bit of time to catch their breath and rejoin. And yeah, just like that, Ione has to back off, run back to the top side of things, and maybe a little bit more action in the bot lane, but I think that's going to go back to equilibrium as well.
But yeah, back to this whole idea of pressure. When you pick the Graves in the jungle, he's not going to be able to facilitate these ganks the same way as Skarner, a Trundle, or a Grog is going to be able to, actually applying CC on the lanes to give your team confidence to actually go for these aggressive macro calls in the early stage of the game. Usually when that happens, you need either A, some sort of roaming support, some sort of roaming top laner, some sort of roaming mid laner, and top lane Ione has had his hands full this entire game with Sin. She physically can't leave this lane. Bottom lane, Braum is not a roaming champion, especially when you're getting hard shoved in by Project and Ginormous Noob. And finally, Zeno doing a damn good job of keeping Route under lock here, giving Route absolutely no room to actually play through the rest of his lanes, and you can see it right now in the build, and not only that, but the gold discrepancy, it's over 2,000 at this point.
Zeno, bit of force in this game, and we called into question his rise last game. Didn't look like the best. This time around, having a much better run of it. Minsu got on the jump start, and he managed to make everything else happen along the way, so got to be feeling good. All the kills are where they need to be for the likes of Illinois right now. We have 2 onto Minsu, 3 onto Zeno, and 1 onto Project 1. They're all going to be grateful for what they have in the division there. Meanwhile, George Mason still just limping through this bit by bit, trying to get a foothold, trying to find something, because they're 2 towers down now. The split push option really not going to come online for Ione at any point against a Singed. And the lane swap, just in full swing now. Continue.
And if you want a quick summary of how the macro game is currently played out for both these teams, just look at the vision scores, especially on the supports. Alex she has been stuck in this bottom lane the entirety of the lane, has only gotten that 8 vision score on the other side. Ginormous Noob has now had time to roam with the jungler, already has the upgraded Eye of the Equinox, fully stacked, whereas Alex, she doesn't even have wards yet. She does not have a Sightstone built up from that task, so even this, when you need to win in the early to mid game, you need to be willing to make those early plays, and unfortunately, that all starts with the vision game, and right now, vision game just doesn't exist.
It's going to be harder and harder to find a way into that as this game does go on. This is a composition from Illinois that can really strangle the life out of any team just with the rotations, and really what Minsu's been able to do on this champion. So taking a look back, I want to rewind about a week ago when we saw George Mason lose 2-0 to Columbia College. And, you know, they put up some pretty heavy games. CC came back in yesterday against Illinois and really just bodied this team in a very convincing 2-0. I think it was 30 minutes for the second game, less than that for the first game. And as the tower gone down in the top side, by the way, that's no one's saving that. But either way, the point was George Mason looked a lot better against Columbia than Illinois did. And I thought, hey, that might be an indicator for how this game's going to go. But the way that Illinois is playing against George Mason right now, you have to wonder, is this not a big return to form for Columbia College?
Well, the first thing you have to understand is Columbia College are good at League of Legends. Not only do they have a very solid school behind them, Columbia College definitely going very hard in on the esports scene, but their players still towards the top. I mean, their mid laner, Julius, is now the ranked 1 player in solo queue last time I checked. But they work incredibly well. Sure, they do choke sometimes when they're back against the wall, but this is a bit of a return to form, at least against teams that aren't named Maryville. Will they come back versus Maryville? That's still something that's yet to be seen, and hopefully something we will be able to answer in those later stages once we get to the national championships. But maybe not too much time talking about that. Actually, yeah, absolutely no contest. Illinois, they're just going to walk away with it.
Yet no chance. Just got taken right out through Illinois, finding themselves the second Drake of the game, the sixth one of the series so far. Not one picked up from George Mason, and so been particularly instrumental in how things fell apart last game for him. We'll see if that continues to be the trend. Already things not too well put together for George Mason. Can still fall apart a little bit more, but they also may be able to turn this back around, turtle out. So it's going to be a lot harder with this composition than it was with last games.
You know, still top upon us being an absolutely annoying threat, and this is going to be so crucial towards the Illinois win condition now in these fights. They need to keep George Mason apart, prevent them from using their ultimates, because even if Route looks like he can do absolutely nothing on these fights, there's still the potential for a big 5-man play. Unfortunately, they might just be using all 5 members on the bot lane.
Yeah, they need to find something to relieve this pressure here. Topopotamus should just be able to get out of this one. They burn a lot for it, and this buys time near the Baron. Topopotamus still with the TP. This means almost certainly that the Baron's going to go over to Illinois, and George Mason just don't seem to have a grip on this at all.
Yeah, with the Rage Blade, Varus, plus the Rise, there is just not enough time for George Mason to make any actual move. But yeah, just that last play just showed you the desperation currently coming out of George Mason. They knew wholeheartedly that the Baron was on the board. They sent all 5 members, maybe not all the way to the bottom lane, but on the bottom side of the map, and they're grasping for straws when they have absolutely nothing left. They are so terrified to take a team fight because they know if they lose that, their season's over.
Yeah, this is all down to the wire. This may be the last 10 minutes coming of Collegiate League of Legends that this team will play this season, and of course, I don't know exactly what year everybody is, but this may be the last time that this team, these 5 members, all play together throughout their collegiate careers as well, and so this is obviously not the note they want to go out on. George Mason needs to find a way to dig deep here.
Exactly. The best teams aren't forged by the ones that can just win games with absolutely no effort. The best teams are those that can find ways to dig deep when it matters the most, and I have to say, George Mason trying to really stand themselves apart, show that why they are championship material. Now has to be the time. 38.2 to 31.6k. Honestly, with the compositional disadvantage at this point, scaling already coming out so strong for both Rise and Varus with Xeno and Project respectively. I mean, just look at the gold differentials between these guys. ADC 6.7 to 8.5, mid lane 7k to 10k.
Firefly's caught. He's going to try to get out of that one okay, and meanwhile, actually, Ion went in onto that one, or Route rather, trying to find a little bit of damage to save the carry. Not on the same page there. Firefly was not able to make too much happen there. That means a tower goes down in the top lane. Ion still just losing to Topopotamus. That banner of command, Baron minion, such a frustration, and there's nothing this Ornn can do here. Towers are going to start falling. They're made out of styrofoam for the likes of Illinois here.
Illinois, there's still a few difficulties they have to overcome. No matter what, sieging and Caitlyn is always a difficult task, though. It's really made a lot easier with just the sheer gold advantage they have. And actually, only one death away from it actually being a perfect game here. No towers falling over, no neutral objectives falling over. Only one who's died so far was Xeno in that top river play. So, I mean, this is basically just a rehearsal for the national championships at this point.
They're looking to make it seem so. This is not good news for George Mason, and they're not going to be able to turtle too heavily here either. They'll get a little bit of respite, just knowing that the Baron is all but nullified now that the members of Illinois are using it to get the fast back more so than try to pressure out these last couple waves they would have on that timer. That's okay for them. Nothing too hectic, but there's one outer turret remaining for the likes of George Mason. One single tower left in that mid lane before it's all inhibitor towers to go.
All that's left standing between Illinois and the national championships at this moment is just a fight. They need to find some way to either force the engage or continue to use Topopotamus in his split push form, because still, just look at these champions, especially the mid lane. Route has to be the core of this teamfight composition. He only has a Seraph's Embrace as opposed to the Death Cap, the Seraph's Embrace, and the fully stacked Rod of Ages coming out for Xeno. With Topopotamus on the split push, It's tricky because normally when you have a 4-1 split push, the correct way to go about it, or even a 1-3-1 if they want to keep Zeno up in top lane, you need to lock down either one of the split pushers immediately or take the fight in the mid lane disadvantageous. But Topopotamus is, once again, the most annoying champion potentially in all of League of Legends to actually try to lock down in a game. Even so, also Zeno, with the Ghost, with the ultimate, incredibly hard to lock down as well. So, GMU, they need to pick a fight to go for, double down on it, but they're basically looking at all bad options.
Yeah, they're pouring a little bit more into Topopotamus at this point. We know how well that went for them last time. Cost them a Baron. This time, they're just trying to hold out their mid lane, hold out their bot lane, and have a latent push building in the top side that someone will eventually need to go after as well. But this is all that pressure buying. Perhaps another Infernal Drake for the likes of Illinois should be uncontested here. And if GMU wanted to go for it, this would be that fight you were talking about, Return.
And once again, George Mason are just nowhere near able to actually take this one down. They're hoping for maybe a little bit more scaling, trying to hold on to these inhibitor towers, but that's a two-edged sword because no matter how much more gold you get on GMU, unless you make some incredibly positive plays, you're still giving gold back over to the Illinois team where they are still very, very happy to continue the scaling war as well.
Scale indeed. I mean, they're going to be able to find it lock, stock, and barrel here, and it seems like now at 25.5 minutes in, George Mason are just starting to circle the drain. You can tell that this has been taxing on them. It's been a hard-fought game thus far, but they're running out of that energy. Are going to be in trouble now as Rout's going to get caught out. Finds a nice 3-man shockwave, tries to turn it around, and actually call the Forge God coming down. They're going to be able to knock up a little bit. The blue tower went down in the bot side. That is an inhibitor tower. Sidge will be flanking. And Zeno still finds a kill onto Rout despite the good wombo combo potential. There's never been a chance for 5 people to group here in this game for the likes of George Mason. So another tower falls. That's 7 now on the board, and the inhibitor is going to start to take a little bit of a beating. Inhibitor tower as well, something in the focus now for Illinois, and they can really do a lot of damage to the remaining 4 members of GMU under their own towers.
15 seconds left on Rout, but honestly, he just does not matter in a team fight. He just landed a 3-man shockwave, and it meant absolutely nothing. And Enrique, good night!
Oh, man. Yeah, bye-bye. That's it. There's really nothing you can do, nothing you can call onto that one. Enrique died at a pivotal time, and this will more than likely be game number 2 going now over to the hands of Illinois. They're going to be finding the first inhibitor. The second one will shortly follow. They just have to quickly stop across base to make. They want to get Ion. That's the Glacial Fissure coming down from Braum. He has to get out of that one. Alex is not in a good position here. They're going to be able to try to find maybe a little bit more. The Shockwave does come through. It feels Topopotamus. Can they find more, perhaps? They lose an inhibitor. And what else will be the cost? Looks like the backing off here. But Illinois find 2 crucial objectives. More towers. Stretch the gold lead to 11K.
Yeah. While GMU can take momentary respite on the fact that they just defended their base, they now also have to deal with the reality that there is a Baron once again on the board. The only inhibitor they still have left standing is mid lane. If this Baron goes over, that's it. The game is just done at that point.
I feel like perhaps this game was done a little bit longer.
It's not quite over. If you have simultaneously disconnections from every member of Illinois, there's still a shot. But if the Baron goes over, even that's not going to save them.
They want to try to find this. The team fight is down. They are the team fighting composition. They're going to find Project 1 low, but there's not enough.
Find him.
Ion has found him. The redemption is coming down. Their base is going to be flooded with super minions while this does happen, so they all have to live here and then turn it back around. Ion in some trouble.
There's the tank.
Gets that kill, and this is bad for the remaining members. The Shockwave finds a couple, but is it enough? Topopotamus with the stun coming out from Ginormous Noob. That's the double kill he finds for himself, and this is all going topsy-turvy the wrong way for George Mason. That's going to be Enrique falling. Firefly, the last surviving member, and they're not going to let this one go without an ace. Meanwhile, a Nexus Tower has fallen, a second one to boot, likely coming out here as well. It's cannon waves, and it's taking the supers a little longer to get there. But the remaining members of Illinois are running it on down. They don't have Project
Firefly.
1. They don't need him.
Firefly's just going to take the last Krugs he has for all the play-ins because this is going to be game.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it. Illinois will book their plane tickets to Los Angeles, where they will compete in the top 8 on the Riot Games stage. They are the second team to lock themselves in there behind Columbia College and are moving on squarely out of Group B.
Certainly, and we always had the questions, would the Big Ten step up when it was needed the most? And the answer to that one is going to be a resounding yes. Illinois, hopefully, definitely hoping to get a little bit of revenge onto Maryland if they do make it out of the group as well. But either way, they're going to be happy for tonight.
This is definitely cause for celebration over into the Big Ten camp, and for the guys over in Illinois. They have indeed done it. They've made it all the way through the postseason to the final tournament, but now the competition gets more stiff than ever, as they do have teams like Western, like Maryville coming in there.
Yeah.
The other winners, UT Dallas, a stronger Southern opponent perhaps as well. And then from the West, of course, that is UC Irvine. So they'll join Columbia College in the bottom half of this seeding to come through as well. 2 more teams to be decided over in Group A. And, you know, potentially we have that match coming up. That's going to be Maryland squaring off against Ottawa, I believe.
No,
not Ottawa.
Simon Fraser. Yes.
That's the one. Yes, those two will be running it down against one another. And that's going to be an exciting matchup because that'll tell us potentially the next 2 going through, or we could get into a 3-way tie for first place. So it's a lot to consider.
Nothing is quite set in stone just yet with that Group A. Unlike Group B, where the win got you through, if there is a Simon Fraser upset of Maryland, we are in for a very long day potentially, but we'll have to check that out once we get there. Make sure you guys stick around because we should actually have the next game up in just a few minutes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a quick break to just reset things, but don't go anywhere. Stay right here on this channel. Returned and I will be bringing you a little bit more action, a little bit more League of Legends. We'll have that series coming ASAP. In the meantime, my name is Kyle Corvus Crow. That is Steven Return Johnson. You have been a lovely audience, and we will get things rolling here in just a few short minutes. Don't go anywhere.
And I've been done my whole life loving you. Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Now every time I look at you, something is on my mind. If you do what I want you to, baby, we'd be so fine. Oh, life ain't a ding dong. If I could take you up in